Alas, another episode of Beta Canon founder training. I'm Dom Ramirez, a software developer, designer, and entrepreneur in Boise, Idaho. I also run a team of developers and designers who specialize in creating apps quickly, inexpensively, and in production quality for non-technical clients. I've worked with a couple hundred clients in my career as a freelancer, the founder of an enterprise software development firm, and now the founder of a specialized agency. I don't work with every person I talk to, so that means I've talked to something like 1,000 potential clients. Most of them were non-technical startup founders. So today, I'm going to tell you the 7 deadly sins for non-technical founders when hiring developers. Non-technical founders can find themselves in a particularly bad buying position. They know software is expensive, but they may not know how expensive, and there's no true limit to that. They might also not know which decisions contribute most heavily to the expense, and hopefully we can expose some of that today. I'll definitely have a lot of videos and articles on facets of this subject, but here are the top 7 deadly sins that come to mind. Number 1, expecting your app to get to 1 million users right when it launches. I've heard a handful of clients ask for an app that will support 1 million users right off the bat. And sure, Barack Obama had that problem when he gave a launch date for healthcare.gov on live television. But most people don't have that particular problem. 1 million users aren't just waiting around to try your app. Not unless you bought like a Super Bowl commercial, in which case I might take your requirement seriously. But unfortunately, clients who pose this requirement now have given their developers an excuse to over-engineer the living daylights out of their product. You could end up paying somewhere between 2 times or 10 times as much to develop your app, not to mention taking resources away from your real challenge, product market fit. And that doesn't mean you'll never have 1 million or even 1 billion users. The way these things work is, even apps that go viral usually have a period of slow, sustained growth for a few months or even years before getting promoted by a celebrity or buying that Super Bowl commercial. And if that's your destiny, you're better off spending your hard-earned dollars on features that can help you make your app more useful to the few people who use it on day one, not features that would let the app support people who may never even show up. Number 2, expecting your service provider to know everything. From the outside looking in, I know that code can seem mystical and unintelligible, and don't feel bad. I promise you, code looked the same way to every developer until they spent a few hundred hours working with it. But just because a developer can speak confidently with a few buzzwords doesn't mean that they're ready to run your whole project, make your app pretty, manage your servers, or even write a single line of code outside of WordPress. Look, you have to trust people in the world, but just be sure to ask lots of questions and get lots of feedback from different sources, not just the developer who you speak with. Number 3, if you build it, they will come. The saddest thing in the world is when my team spends weeks or months toiling over an app, all to have it disappear the minute we hand it over to the client. The old expression, if you build it, they will come, is completely obsolete in the digital world. Nearly every person on this planet is being asked to buy something all day, every day. If you build it, you need to be prepared to get their attention, one at a time if you have to. Number 4, starting off with a big project and lots of features. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Statistically speaking, the bigger a project is, the more likely that it will fail. That might sound like it won't happen to you, but 20% of software projects are utter failures. That's a direct quote from the research, and more than half of them are at least severely distressed. If you want to beat those odds, you need to be willing to shave your product scope down to the absolute most important thing for your users. You don't need a pile of nice-to-have features or every feature under the sun. You need to give your users real value in a way that they're not getting elsewhere. You can add those cute little Easter eggs when you're famous enough to get PR from them. Number 5, waiting too long to test with real people, excluding your family. When people spend long periods of time working on something creative, this thing always happens. You lose a third-party perspective. You already know everything about what your app does, what it's for, and why people should use it, but your real users don't know any of that. It's impossible for you to know what your users are going to be thinking when they open your app for the first time, and if they don't have a reason to be nice to you, they might just close the app. if it doesn't show clear value right away. Even though it's scary, and let's be real, doing these videos is scary for me too, you gotta put yourself out there and see what a few real people think. Otherwise, you'll never win the hearts of the masses. Number 6, micromanaging developers and designers. The last thing you want is a team member who is checked out. There are going to be so many tiny details that are going to be exclusively in the hands of each developer and designer on your team. You want to give them every reason in the world to do their best for you, and micromanaging will do the opposite of that in a hurry. Don't get me wrong, you have to make your requirements clear. Meet with your service providers often and make sure that you're getting what you need. Just don't go flicking your team on the nose every step they take. Unless you're training them from the ground up, you've hired them because they're supposed to know what they're doing. And if they can't do that without you constantly interrupting their process, fire them and find somebody else. Number 7, hoping the problems will solve themselves. Failing projects can be very predictable. They follow a similar pattern, and they feel like they're failing every time you learn more about them. Succeeding projects are constantly proving that they're succeeding by meeting expectations most of the time and dealing with unexpected problems quickly. If your project feels like it's failing for longer than 2 to 4 weeks, it probably is. Dig into it. And if your expectations aren't met, you might need to just find a different service provider. And so I guess now is the time for me to plug my own company. Beta Canon is a small team of software developers and designers who specialize in building new apps for startups quickly, inexpensively, and in production quality, so that you can launch your product into market while still having resources to pivot when you figure out that people didn't like your app exactly the way that you designed it at first. If you'd like to chat with a Beta Canon Pro, even if we're not a perfect fit, we offer a free consultation to anyone who bothers to fill out a form at betacanon.com. And if you have thoughts or feelings or microaggressions to share about this video, please drop them in the comments. And if you'd rather chat with me in private, send me an email at dom@betacanon.com.